Witchfinder General. It started in Boreham Wood, southern Hertfordshire, late in 1646. The alehouse in Boreham Wood buzzed with the hum of voices and the clatter of mugs. Smoke hung in the air, mingling with the tang of spilled ale and roasting meat. Among the crowd sat Matthew Hopkins, Witchfinder General, his sharp features illuminated by the flickering light of the hearth. He was dressed in black, his wide-brimmed hat resting beside him on the table. His eyes scanned the room, lingering on a young serving girl, Hanna Marshall, as she moved briskly between tables. Hanna was striking, her auburn hair tied back, her green eyes catching the firelight. Hopkins watched her intently, his wine-stained lips curling into a thin smile. When she brought his drink, he leaned in close. "You'd do well to show kindness to a man like me," he murmured, his tone oily. "A good word from the Witchfinder General can spare many a misfortune." Hanna straightened, her gaze unwavering. "Your drink is here. That's kindness enough." She turned on her heel and walked away, leaving Hopkins seething. That night, as the town quieted, Hopkins summoned the sheriff, Samuel Turner. "There's witchery in this town," he declared, tapping the table for emphasis. "The serving girl, Hanna Marshall, she's in league with the devil. Arrest her at once." Samuel stiffened, but nodded. He had long suspected Hopkins was a fraud, preying on fear to line his pockets. Yet he kept his doubts hidden, knowing the Witchfinder's influence could easily turn the town against him. Hanna was dragged from her small home by Samuel himself, her cries echoing through the empty streets. Once inside the cold, damp jail, Samuel leaned close. "You're innocent. I know that," he whispered. "Hopkins is a liar, but the town is under his spell. We don't have much time." Under the cover of darkness, Samuel led Hanna out of Boreham Wood, pointing her down the Edgware Road. "Head to London, disappear, and don't look back." She hesitated, her eyes filled with gratitude and fear, before vanishing into the night. The next morning, Hopkins awoke to the news of Hanna's escape. Furious, he stormed into the town square and demanded justice. Unable to find her, he accused 3 other women of witchcraft, innocent souls who were hanged before the day was out. The townsfolk whispered that the Witchfinder's judgment had grown erratic, but none dared speak openly. London, 2 decades later. The Great Plague had come and gone, leaving London scarred. By 1666, the city buzzed with new life, its taverns filled with tales of old horrors and new gossip. One such tavern hosted a man known as Thomas Drayton, a reclusive figure with a limp and a scarred face. Few recognized him as the disgraced Matthew Hopkins, exposed years earlier by King Charles as a conman. He lived in obscurity, avoiding prying eyes and nursing his bitterness. One night, as Thomas stumbled out of the tavern, his senses dulled by drink, a hooded figure approached him. "Spare a coin?" the figure whispered. Thomas ignored the voice, muttering as he tried to steady himself. But the figure stepped into his path, lowering the hood. It was Hanna Marshall. "You," he breathed, his face draining of color. He never forgot a face, and many still haunted him. Hanna's lips curled into a cold smile. "You took everything from me. I've waited for this day." She raised her hand, speaking words in a tongue long forgotten. The air shimmered, and flames erupted around Thomas. He screamed, the fire consuming him where he stood. Passers-by rushed to help, but by the time the flames subsided, nothing was left but ash. Pudding Lane, hours later. The fire spread from the bakery where Thomas had staggered minutes before his death. By morning, it had engulfed much of the city. The Great Fire of London would forever be remembered, but the fate of the man who had once called himself the Witchfinder General was never associated with this history. Hanna, her revenge complete, returned to Boreham Wood, where her coven awaited her. As she walked the long road, she laughed softly to herself, the sound carrying through the town like the echoes of a long-forgotten curse. She vowed to make everyone suffer who had a part in this tale, just as she had done for many, many years. The end.